Alrighty, Andre, let's get going. Honestly, I'm gonna fly through the first three here. First three were straightforward, simple. Uh, as you can see here, just have the graphic object texture passing through a shader pointer as well as a model pointer, setting the texture down here to put it on the object itself. Uh, Down here, set to context the CAM matrices, all the regular stuff. In here, virtually identical to the color. Most of them were uh, virtually, or I would say basically, the exact same as color. Uh, have the world set here, have the texture set here. Inside, you set the resource and sampler to the texture, you send out the world, and then you actually render the object itself. Uh, so we will go on to number two. Number two was the material, and then I used a light to test out the material. So here, again, same idea. Use a different shader. You use shader color light. Excuse me, because you did not need an actual texture. Set up the lights that we use last homework or something like that. It was last homework, I believe. Created the two models, passing through the shader color light pointer rather than shader texture. You set the material here as well. Similar to the texture, though, you actually have the world going through. You set the world down here, or set the world up there, I should say. Then you have the spotlight parameters, all that good stuff, set to context, the CAM matrices, and you got to send out the light parameters, and then you render it. So uh, basically the exact same thing as the other guy. Oh, yeah, I forgot to show you this. Yeah, again, this one's actually more identical to the color than it is to the texture. The only difference here is going to be you got the material, and then there's actually a function to send the world and the material in there, so you can just do it both at one time. So that's pretty nice instead of doing both of them. So number three was a combination of both of them. So we got the texture going around in a circle. This guy here's got the cube face. You got the guy going around with the brick. So again, I used a light to test out the material. The only difference here compared to the other ones was that I actually passed through the texture parameter rather than actually having a set texture function. I just felt it was easier. Um, Thinking about it, you could probably do the same thing for material if you wanted to. I'm not sure, I haven't tried it. But then you also, again, have the set world. Down in the draw scene, literally identical to the number two problem that I did. Uh, and then in here, not going to have really any difference. Yeah, you just set the texture equal to the actual texture, the set material. Down here is really the only big difference is you have to set the texture and sampler itself within render to make sure the texture is put on there. So that's really the only difference. The last one's going to take a little time to go through, and that's just because of we had to do three different graphic objects per one. So I have each test commented out or up and running, whichever one. So for this guy here, the first one I'm showing you is the texture and the light put together, which was the number three graphic object. So actually all three of these will be very similar as well in terms of the way they look and the way they're structured, I would say. So for this guy here, going around in a circle, got the light, the brick, a different texture per mesh as well. So then, yeah. So in here, you just use I use the shader texture light, the same thing from number three, the lights. Here created new textures, and then the graphic object texture itself. Here we actually have a set texture, and you actually need the set texture this time because you have to set each thing to the indice itself, and same thing with the set material too. Down here, you actually don't need to because it's only going to use one texture in of itself, so that's not necessary. Actually, I could take out that 0 too and it would work perfectly okay. All the way at the bottom down here you have the spotlight, actually the exact same thing. from the other ones. So inside here, I'll show you what's going on. Bringing in the two different pointers. Inside here, it's getting how many meshes you have. The mesh text is actually going to be a double pointer. It's going to be a pointer to an array of pointers. So that way I'm able to just set them null. It was the easiest way to do that. Then you got the mesh material. The mesh material was very similar to color that you gave us. Almost a copy and paste, I would say. And then you want to delete them. You don't want that stuff floating around. And then here's the set texture where you can just set it. It goes into whatever point of the array you were in. Inside here is where you actually set the index itself for where you want it. As you can see there, you set, so if you want this to be 1 and then the texture to be brick, brick would be at the array point or index 1 itself. Material, exact same thing as the texture, literally, except it takes in a material, obviously. So in the render here, you have the vertex index buffers that you put together, and then you want to loop through every time to make sure that each mesh itself has its own texture. And same thing with the material, you want to make sure it has its own material. That's why you loop through, and that's how you get the per mesh basis. This part right here is what got me. For some reason, don't ask me why, it was just a stupid mistake. I kept just using regular render and wondering why it would only render one one texture for the whole thing, and then I realized, oh, it's render mesh. That kind of ticked me off. So now we'll go in and we'll test the other guys. Just gotta give me a sec here real quick. Take this guy. Comment you. Gotta comment you. Comment you. Uncomment you. And down here. Comment you out. Comment you. Then here. Dang it, I did the wrong one in this guy. So, my bad, Andre. I know this is taking a little bit longer than I would like to, even. Yes. And then I gotta go down to the deconstructor and do this. So, I think it's this one. So, and then it should run perfectly fine. Alright, so yeah, here you just wanted the actual textures themselves being placed on there. You didn't want any other fancy schmancy stuff. This was actually the first graphics object. I should say the first one you wanted us to do. This one here, again, fairly straightforward. Just circling around, have it on per mesh again, creating the textures, setting the textures. As I explained, you actually have to set the texture because you need the array point as well. Then you got this guy. Exact same thing. The only difference is that you don't have the material inside here. The set world, everything else is the exact same thing from the text light, actually, just without the material. Same thing with the material too. I'll show you the material just to show you it works, but the material is going to be the exact same thing. Without the textures, so basically just vice versa kind of thing. Let me just comment all this out, get all this out of here. There we go. Hope you enjoy my elevator music while I'm doing this. Go down here, comment, and this guy should be the one. Alright, now it should run. Now we should be good, hopefully. Yep. Alright, so yeah, again, it's on the per mesh. This was more or less to show you that it actually worked properly. So, exact same thing as the texture. Outside of the fact you don't have to create a new texture. You just set the material. You could set it to whatever color you want to. And then again, you have the indices going down. and the color light right here. Oh man, I actually got to open this up. Alright, sorry about that. Uh, Color light right here, identical to textures, to the texture. Outside of that, it's got mesh material. It just says material. And then down here, you don't have to do the texture for a sampler and all that. So that's the only difference. As far as the further work goes, the further work I was thinking that you could do something similar to what you do down here in, I think it's model. You can almost pass through to see what is needed, and then based on that, you could just do cases, and you could basically tell which shader you want to use. So that was my thought for that. Almost have it basically, what do you need? Here you go. That's the shader you need. That kind of thing. So almost a pointer into the right direction. Kind of a stupid joke. Anyways, yeah, I'm sorry. It kind of took a little bit longer, but yeah.